Some betrayals are quiet. They don't arrive with slamming doors or broken glass, but with silence so thick it drowns you before you know you're underwater. That text message wasn't meant for me. My finger hovered over the screen, trembling slightly as I read it again. 4 years of marriage, and it took just 12 words to shatter everything we had. I thought we were solid. Can't wait to feel you again tonight. She's at yoga. Miss you. I sat there at the kitchen counter we'd designed together, debating wood versus quartz, and suddenly, the world tilted. The quartz felt icy beneath my hands. I set the phone down as the screen faded to black, wishing the words could vanish with it. That Wednesday wasn't even my yoga night. I had left work early, bringing home his favorite, chicken tikka masala, because he said he was overwhelmed with the product launch. I had been so proud of myself, thinking a warm meal and quiet night would ease his stress. My chest still held the echo of excitement I'd felt walking in the door. In seconds, it evaporated into nausea. The apartment was silent, the bedroom door slightly ajar. I heard the shower and thought I'd surprise him. That's when I noticed his phone on the nightstand lighting up with a message. I'm not the snooping type, never was. My parents had a marriage steeped in mistrust, accusations that eventually broke them. I promised myself I'd never live like that. But something about that message preview tugged at me. The sender? Julia from marketing. Julia from his office. The one he brought up now and then over dinner. Casually. Professionally. Julia, who sent him a holiday card last year with a handwritten note I'd found oddly intimate. Julia, the name I saw in his laptop browser history. Last month, when I borrowed it to check flight prices, her social profiles had popped up in his search history. I stood frozen, the shower still running, his phone in my hand, my chest tightening. Time felt like syrup, stretching. Do I confront him now? Wait until he gets out? Pretend none of it happened? I made a choice that would change everything. It felt like the air had thickened, pressing in on my skin. My pulse pounded in my ears, louder than the water behind the door. I returned the phone exactly how I found it, grabbed my coat, and left the food on the kitchen counter with a note. Got called back to the office. Eat without me. Love you. But I didn't go to the office. I drove to the little park a few blocks away, parked beneath a big elm tree, and finally let it all hit me. The betrayal was sharp. Not just the affair, but how effortlessly he lived this secret life. How many nights had he kissed me with the same lips he used to whisper to her? How many times had I said yoga night, unknowingly handing him the perfect cover? A scream stayed trapped inside me, vibrating just beneath the surface. It was grief, rage, shame, all tangled into something wordless. I wasn't just heartbroken, I felt erased. I stayed there until the sun dipped low, families folding up picnic blankets, teens tossing footballs, couples strolling by holding hands, all these slices of normal life, while mine quietly crumbled. My phone buzzed, a text from him. Thanks for dinner. Working late on the Lauder file. Don't wait up. The Lauder file had wrapped last month. I knew because he celebrated with his team at some upscale lounge downtown. I had picked him up that night. He'd had too much gin. Or so he claimed. That night, I came home just past midnight. He was asleep or pretending. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, studying the face I thought I knew better than my own. At rest, he looked like the man I had married, gentle, steady, mine. But he wasn't mine. Maybe he never had been. I didn't cry that night. I just sat in the living room until the sun started to rise, scrolling through old photos on my phone, our wedding, beach trips, goofy shots from late-night dinners. I was searching for the moment. The point when the man in those photos had silently decided I wasn't enough. The next morning, I slipped into character like it was second nature. I brewed coffee, kissed him goodbye, asked about his meetings. Every small act felt like walking barefoot across shards of glass, but I didn't flinch. Not on the outside. He brought up his mom's birthday cookout, said she'd asked if I could bring my classic spinach dip. Everyone loves it, he said, gently squeezing my shoulder. His mother, Janice, my mother-in-law, the woman who had smiled when she welcomed me into the family, but never let me forget I wasn't what she'd pictured for her son. The woman who still kept a photo of his college girlfriend on the shelf beside our wedding picture. Who once called me the current wife in front of the whole family. That's when the idea came to me. A whisper, really. The kind of dangerous thought that should have shaken me. Instead, it felt like oxygen after nearly drowning. "Of course," I said, smiling just enough. "Wouldn't miss it." As his car pulled away, I made another choice. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. I wasn't going to cry or scream or throw his belongings out the window like some TV drama cliché. This betrayal required precision. It needed to be unforgettable, to match the cold strategy behind his lies. I grabbed my phone, opened my laptop. I knew where to begin. Finding Julia wasn't hard. 4 years of marriage had dulled my edge, but hadn't erased my instincts. I knew his email password, his cloud access, even had his location sharing switched on, supposedly so I could check if he was still in the office. The digital trail painted a story that made me physically sick. Their affair wasn't new. From what I found buried in a folder titled Vendor Contracts Q2, they'd been involved for at least 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of me washing bedsheets they'd probably desecrated together. 8 months of late-night work emergencies, false meetings, and fake client drama. There was a reservation confirmation for a weekend at a winery 3 hours north. The same weekend he said he was in Boston for a software expo. Credit card charges for gifts I never received. Dinner tabs from places I'd begged to try that he always called pretentious or overpriced. But it wasn't the cheating that gutted me. It was realizing how thoroughly he'd curated this lie. Every time I voiced concern, however gently, he made me feel delusional. Paranoid, untrustworthy. "You know I'd never do that to you," he'd say, eyes wide, looking hurt. "Don't you trust me at all?" Classic gaslighting. And like a fool, I'd apologized, again, for doubting him. I tried even harder to be the ideal wife, more patient with his late nights, more supportive of his work demands, more accepting of his absence, less needy, less emotional. I thought that if I loved him better, more gently, more loyally, I could somehow outshine the shadows I was too afraid to name. Maybe, deep down, I believed that loving him harder could undo the grief I still carried, the baby we lost a year ago, a quiet heartbreak we never really talked about again. I had clung to the marriage like it was all I had left of that future. 4 days after I saw that text, I found her Instagram. Julia Benton, 33, brunette. One of those effortlessly beautiful women who made other women feel both impressed and inadequate. Her profile was polished. Photos at Bari class, 5-star restaurants, gallery openings, and tropical getaways. No pictures of my husband, naturally. They were too careful for that. But then I saw it. A close-up of her hand holding a cocktail, a dainty gold bracelet on her wrist. The caption, "Best surprise from someone special. He always knows exactly what I need." I knew that bracelet. It was the same one I'd admired in a jewelry store in Miami last year, on our anniversary trip. I had pointed it out, half joking. He'd glanced at it and shrugged, said it looked nice, but overpriced. 2 weeks later, a charge from that very store appeared on our shared credit card. When I asked about it, he told me it was a birthday gift for his mom. His mother's birthday was in February. It was August. The timeline cracked like thin ice beneath my feet. The truth had always been there, hiding in excuses, deflections, and smirks I once mistook for charm. That night, I lay awake in bed while he snored next to me, mentally stitching together a timeline of deception. The business trips that always ran long. The urgent meetings. The new gym obsession. The cologne he suddenly wore. Just switching it up, he'd said. How his laptop password had mysteriously changed the one time I needed to print something. How he'd begun bringing his phone into the bathroom during showers. All of it had been right in front of me, and I had looked away. I had silenced my instincts, betrayed my own gut in the name of peace, of partnership, of pretending. I trusted him, defended him to friends when they asked if everything was okay. "He's working hard," I'd explained. "We're just focused on building our future." What future? The one where he left me for Julia? Or the one where I stayed in the dark while he lived a whole other life? The pain was suffocating, a sharp weight beneath my ribs, making it hard to breathe. I lost 6 pounds that week without trying. Food tasted like nothing. Sleep was rare. I became a ghost in my own life, going through motions, smiling through cracks, hollowed out by truth I hadn't yet said aloud. By day, I went through the motions, meetings, emails, smiling at jokes I barely heard. By night, I became a detective, digging through his digital lies, each breadcrumb a confirmation that everything I believed had been false. One evening, while I was prepping dinner, his favorite spinach lasagna of all things, my phone rang. It was my sister. We were close, usually talked a few times a week, but I'd dodged her calls since the moment I found out. She knew me too well. "Hey stranger," she said when I finally picked up. "Still alive over there?" "Just busy," I answered, forcing a laugh. "Work's been insane." A pause. "Are you okay? You sound off." I almost told her. About Julia. About the months of lies. The words built in my throat, sharp and burning, but I stopped. Saying it out loud would make it real, and she would demand action, confront him, lawyer up, get out. All the logical things. "I'm fine," I lied, "just fighting a cold." Then the text. Julia. The months of deception. The words swelled in my throat like acid, but something held me back. Saying them aloud would make it all real. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. More than anything, I knew my sister would go into full crisis mode. She'd tell me to confront him, demand answers, lawyer up, file for divorce, the standard protocol. "I'm fine," I lied, "just a cold." After I hung up, I stirred the sauce like a robot, watching red spirals form against the shiny steel pot. That's when another message came in. Stuck at work again. "Don't wait up." I turned my phone face down on the counter and kept stirring, my mind suddenly still, disturbingly clear. I had given this man everything, my faith, my heart, my loyalty, through job changes and family disasters. I was the one who made the funeral arrangements when his dad passed 2 years ago, while he shut down emotionally. I worked weekends to support us when he took 3 months off to rediscover his purpose last spring. I postponed the conversation about kids because he wasn't ready. My entire life had been built around his timeline, his comfort, and in return, he betrayed me. Not just through physical intimacy with someone else, but through a masterfully engineered web of lies. Every whispered, "I love you." Every morning coffee kiss. Every plan for the future. Poisoned. I gave everything, to him, to them, and they tossed me aside like I was disposable. And by them, I didn't just mean him, his entire family. The ones who hugged me at holidays but made sure I knew I was never quite enough. His mother, Janice, who helpfully corrected every dish I brought to family meals. His sister, who after 4 years still referred to me as the latest. His father, before he passed, who once slurred over scotch that his son could have married someone more ambitious. That night, as I scraped the untouched lasagna into the trash, I made a decision. I wouldn't just confront my husband. I wasn't just going to walk away with tears and a dramatic suitcase scene. No. That would be too simple. This betrayal, the deliberate destruction of my trust, deserved something far more deliberate. Something that ensured he couldn't twist the story. Something unforgettable. The cookout at his mother's place was exactly 10 days away. Janice's 65th birthday bash. A grand milestone. She'd been orchestrating it for months. The entire extended family, old friends, even the retired neighbors from their old block were coming. He had called it the family's Met Gala with a smirk, clearly proud despite the sarcasm. I had to move fast and smart. No room for melodrama or mistakes. This needed strategy. First, I had to get hard proof, not just texts and suspicious emails. Something undeniable. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator, not some trenchcoat guy from a bad thriller, a professional. Her name was Claire, mid-40s, ex-military, sharp as hell. Dozens of 5-star reviews. We met at a quiet cafe a few blocks from my place. "I'm not looking for confrontations or humiliating snapshots," I told her. "I need facts, concrete, organized, and clear." She nodded, completely unfazed. She knew exactly what I meant. "Timeline, locations, frequency, confirmed ID," I added. "I can get you an initial report in 48 hours, she said. She was true to her word. 2 days later, I had photos of my husband and Julia walking into a boutique hotel downtown, timestamped precisely during hours he claimed to be meeting a client in Midtown. There were audio recordings too, conversations captured in public cafes and lobbies, nothing graphic, but intimate enough to confirm everything. No more guesswork. The affair was real. Seeing him with her, how natural their body language was, how easy their smiles came. It shattered any remaining hope that I was imagining things. But the most surprising find wasn't about Julia or the affair. It was about our finances. "You might want to look into your joint accounts," Claire mentioned during our second meeting. She said it offhandedly, almost like a side note. Something didn't add up when I was following his patterns. That night, while he slept beside me, I pulled out my laptop and took a hard look at our financial records. And what I found made the affair feel like a footnote. He had been quietly funneling money out of our joint savings, the account we had built together for our first house, into a separate account I'd never seen before. At first it was small withdrawals, barely noticeable. But over the last 12 months, the amounts had grown. Almost $30,000 was gone. I used to blame myself for not contributing more, for not getting that promotion, for choosing a nonprofit job over something flashier. I'd believed I was the weak link in our financial chain. Turns out, he was the one unraveling it, thread by careful thread. It wasn't just money. It was trust, commitment, our shared vision, drained transaction by transaction. As if that wasn't enough, I discovered he had taken out a personal loan 3 months earlier, without even mentioning it. According to the terms of our prenuptial agreement, any financial obligation over a few $1,000s required mutual consent. Yes, we had a prenup, at his mother's insistence. To protect family assets, she said. The irony now was almost laughable. I used to feel small whenever she brought it up, like I didn't quite measure up. Now, it felt like a shield I was grateful for. My hands were shaking as I downloaded statements, copied documents, and uploaded them to a private cloud folder, one he didn't know existed. Then I picked up my phone and called my college roommate, now a seasoned divorce attorney in Seattle. "Don't say anything yet," she warned after I shared what I'd found. "Keep documenting. Email everything to a secure account, and maybe move some funds, just enough to protect yourself when the time comes." The next morning, I opened a personal checking account. Quietly, transferred a portion from our joint account, not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to give me breathing room. I also made an appointment with a local divorce lawyer for later in the week. But the most strategic move I made? Calling Janice, my mother-in-law. "Hi, Janice," I chirped when she picked up. "I'm so excited for your birthday cookout. I was wondering, would you mind if I brought someone?" She sounded surprised. "Oh, she's a friend from Liam's office. She's been going through a rough time. I think some family energy might do her good." Janice was flattered, of course. "Of course, sweetheart. The more the merrier. What's her name?" "Julia," I said smoothly, keeping my tone light. "Julia Benton. She works in marketing with Liam." "That's incredibly thoughtful of you," Janice beamed. "You've always had such a big heart. You can tell a lot about someone by how they treat others." If only she knew. My pulse was steady, my voice even. I had never lied so smoothly in my life. The final piece clicked into place at breakfast the next morning. He was scrolling on his phone, probably texting her, while I spread jam on toast, feigning ease. "Oh," I said offhandedly. "Hope it's okay. I invited your colleague Julia to your mom's cookout this weekend." His mug froze in midair. "You what?" he asked, voice tightening. "Julia for marketing?" I nodded calmly, watching the color drain subtly from his face. "Yeah, we ran into each other at that cafe near your office yesterday. She mentioned she's new to the city and doesn't know many people, so I figured your mom's barbecue would be perfect. You know how welcoming Janice is." I don't think that's a good idea," he stammered. "Oh, I already cleared it with her," I said, taking a bite of toast like it was just another morning. "She loved the idea of meeting one of your coworkers, said it's about time she got to know the people you spend so much time with." The flicker of panic in his eyes was almost enough. "Almost. You should have run it by me first," he said tightly. I tilted my head, innocence personified. "Why? Is there a problem with Julia?" He recovered fast. He had experience with lies. No, nothing like that. It's just office politics. You know how messy that can be." "Well, it's already arranged," I said sweetly. I even offered to pick her up since it's on the way. She seemed so touched by the gesture. That entire week was a study in performance, one I'd perfected from living with a master manipulator. I smiled, cooked dinner, chatted about weekend errands. I even initiated sex one night, which he declined, saying he was too tired. I just nodded, playing my part. Behind the scenes, I was meticulous. I found Julia's company email in the employee directory and sent a warm, welcoming message. "Hi, Julia. It was lovely meeting you. My husband and I would love for you to join us at his mother's birthday barbecue this Saturday. He mentioned you've been doing amazing work lately, and his mom is really looking forward to meeting more of the team," she replied quickly, thrilled. "That's incredibly kind of you both. I'd love to come. Are you sure his mother won't mind?" "Not at all," I assured her. "Janice is excited to meet you. She loves hosting and always says family events are better with good company from work." Then I followed up with Janice, solidifying the invitation. "Julia's so looking forward to Saturday," I told her. "She's heard so many wonderful things about the family from Liam." Janice, always eager to show off her circle, was delighted. "Make sure to introduce her around," she chirped. "Any food allergies I should know about?" "Not that I know of," I said sweetly, "but I'll check with Liam. They work closely, so he'd know." Each night that week, as my husband lay beside me, this stranger I had once vowed forever to, I rehearsed. This wasn't going to be a tantrum. It wasn't about screaming matches or drama. This was justice. Quiet, clean, unforgettable. The kind of reckoning that couldn't be spun or downplayed. The night before the barbecue, I packed a small overnight bag and stashed it in the trunk of my car while he was in the shower. I had contingency plans. I had evidence. But most importantly, I had the advantage. He never saw it coming. "Looking forward to tomorrow?" he asked as we got into bed. I smiled at the ceiling, my voice steady. "More than you can imagine." I answered honestly. "I think it's going to be a day no one forgets." He didn't know just how right he was. Janice's backyard had been transformed for her birthday celebration. White canopies stretched over long tables, fairy lights twinkling between the trees, fresh flower arrangements on every surface. Classic Janice. She never missed a chance to create tasteful drama. By 3 o'clock, the yard was buzzing. Family, neighbors, and half her country club had filled the space. My husband was on edge all morning. He kept checking his phone, stepping away for fake work calls, eyes darting with barely contained anxiety. I'd caught glimpses of frantic texts, likely to Julia, trying to convince her not to come. But I'd seen that coming. I'd set a backup plan in motion, one I hadn't shared with him. "I thought we'd swing by and pick up Julia," I'd said that morning, mascara wand in hand as I stood at the bathroom mirror. "She lives right on the way." He looked like he'd swallowed a tack. "I don't think. It's already arranged," I cut in, applying mascara with precision. "She's expecting us at 2:30. The flash of sheer panic on his face nearly made me laugh. Almost. When we pulled up outside her building, a sleek glass tower downtown, complete with doorman, he stayed in the car. Said he had a migraine. How convenient. "Perfect," I chirped. "I'll run up and get her." I patted his arm gently. "There's aspirin in my purse." Julia opened the door looking radiant. Flowy summer dress, flawless makeup, that kind of bright, slightly nervous smile you wear when you're trying to impress a crowd you've never met. She had no idea what she was stepping into. "It's so nice to meet you in person," I said warmly, extending a hand. "Liam's mentioned you quite a bit." Her smile twitched. "He has?" "Oh, of course," I replied. "Shall we? He's waiting in the car." She chattered through the elevator ride, nervous energy pouring out in waves. How excited she was to meet everyone. How amazing Janice sounded from everything Liam had told her. I nodded encouragingly the entire time, letting her dig her own grave with every cheerful syllable. And then came the moment she slid into the back seat of our SUV. "Hey you," she beamed, followed by stunned, silent horror. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, their eyes locked. Then his eyes flicked up to mine in the rearview mirror, begging. "Migraine," I explained to Julia. "He gets them when he's stressed, but there's no way he'd miss his mother's birthday, right, babe?" He said nothing, just stared straight ahead. The 20-minute drive to Janice's house was agonizing for them. For me, it was art. I kept the conversation flowing. Stories about office dynamics, relatives she'd be meeting, little personal anecdotes from our marriage. Each word was a scalpel. When I brought up the anniversary trip we were planning, Julia stiffened. "Did he mention we're renewing our vows next spring?" "In Bali," I said with a sigh. His idea. So romantic. Liam's hands tightened into fists on his lap. He still hadn't said a word. When we pulled into Janice's driveway, I slipped out and looped my arm through Julia's like we were college roommates. "Come on," I smiled. "Let me introduce you to everyone." Liam trailed behind us like a man walking toward his own execution. Janice came over immediately, martini in hand, beaming. "You must be Julia," she exclaimed. "We're so glad you could join us. Any friend of Liam's is family in this house." "Mother," Liam cut in, voice tight. "I need to talk to you, privately, just for a minute." "Nonsense," Janice waved him off. "I want to get to know Julia. Come, dear, let me introduce you to everyone." And with that, she began parading Julia around the yard, arm linked through hers, introducing her proudly as my son's colleague. I stayed close, hovering just behind them, making sure I was present in every conversation, always smiling, always gracious. Liam was unraveling. I watched him down 2 scotches back to back. He kept trying to pull Julia aside, but I'd always conveniently appear, smiling, refilling drinks, steering conversations, keeping things perfectly on track. Every interaction, every polite laugh, felt like placing bricks in the trap I had so carefully designed. Then came dinner. Janice had gone all out, assigned seating, fancy calligraphy name cards. I had called her that morning to make one small adjustment. Julia sat directly across from Liam and me. Janice was to her right. Perfect. As the main course was served, Janice stood and tapped her glass with her fork. "Before we eat," she announced, "I just want to thank everyone for being here. Family means everything to me, and I'm so lucky to have you all in my life." She turned toward Liam, "Especially my wonderful son who has made me so proud, and his beautiful wife." She nodded toward me, "Who has been the perfect partner to him." I rose slowly, lifting my wine glass. "If I may," I said softly, "I'd like to say something too." The entire table turned toward me. Liam's face was pale, eyes wide. "Family is everything," I began, "and truth is what holds family together. Without honesty, what do we really have?" Silence. Everyone listening. Liam's hand reached under the table for my arm. I gently moved it away. "I've recently discovered some truths about my family that I think everyone here deserves to know." My tone stayed calm, conversational, almost. "For instance," I continued, turning slightly to Julia, "did you know Liam and Julia aren't just colleagues?" Julia froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "They've been having an affair for 8 months now." Gasps rang out around the table. "They even spent last weekend together at the Lakeshore Inn, while I was told he was at a product conference in Boston." Janice's hand flew to her pearls, stunned. The betrayal registered across faces like a slow-moving wave, shame, disbelief, indignation, all surfacing in real time. "But wait," I added, reaching into my purse, "there's more." I pulled out a slim folder and placed it on the table, sliding it gently toward Janice. In investigating Liam's extracurricular activities, I also found some interesting financial behavior. I smiled sweetly. "It seems your son has been embezzling from his firm for over a year." The room went utterly still. These documents show transfers from corporate accounts to a private offshore fund. I've highlighted the key transactions. Liam lunged for the folder, but his brother, always faster, snatched it first and flipped it open. His eyes scanned the pages, widening. That's not," Liam stammered. This isn't." "I have copies of everything," I interrupted, "including the account numbers." "Julia," I said calmly, "were you aware of this?" Her head snapped up, the color drained from her face. "Because the company might be very interested to know that someone in the marketing department had a close relationship with the man altering financial records." "I didn't," she stammered. "I never." "Of course," I continued, "an affair might be considered a private matter, if it weren't for the fact that company resources were used to support it. Corporate cars, travel accounts, conference budgets." I looked directly at Janice. "And I thought you should know that those diamond earrings Liam gave you last Christmas, the ones you're wearing right now, they were purchased using misappropriated company funds." Janice's hands flew to her ears. Her expression turned from confusion to horror. Liam pushed back from the table so hard his chair clattered to the ground. "Enough," he hissed. "This is insane. You've completely lost it." I smiled, calm, unwavering. "No, what I've found is clarity and evidence. Lots of it." I paused, then added, "which I've already sent to your company's ethics committee, the board of directors, and the SEC. You'll likely hear from them on Monday." Silence fell like a blanket. Somewhere in the background, forgotten steaks sizzled on the grill. No one moved. No one breathed. Every guest was frozen, stunned, eyes wide, glasses held midair. I turned back to the group. "I've also retained a divorce attorney," I said, Turns out that cheating, combined with corporate fraud, makes certain clauses in our prenup null and void. Very interesting legal ground. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out a second envelope. I handed it to Janice. This one contains documents showing that your son has been steadily draining our joint savings. The account we created to fund your future grandchildren's college education. I paused. You've mentioned those grandkids a lot over the years, Janice. I thought you deserved to know. He's been stealing from them before they even existed. Janice took the envelope with trembling hands. She opened it slowly, and as her eyes scanned the contents, her face shifted, shock giving way to something far deeper. Disappointment. Sharp, piercing, directed not at me but at her son. "Is this true?" she asked, voice like paper tearing. Liam didn't answer. He didn't have to. I lifted my wine glass again and took a small sip. "Thank you all for witnessing this," I said to the table. "It saves me from having to explain it individually later." Then I turned to Julia, who looked as if she might be sick right there on Janice's heirloom linens. "He told you I didn't know, didn't he? That we were separated? Divorcing?" She didn't respond. "That's his pattern," I said, almost gently. "Ask Nicole, his ex." "Janice, you still have her picture on the mantle, don't you?" Janice flinched. "He told me they'd split 3 months before they actually did. He told you the same lie." I shifted my gaze back to Julia. "And that bracelet? The gold one in your Valentine's Day post? I admired it last year. He told me it was too expensive." I paused, letting it sit, "But then he bought it, for you." Classic. I set my napkin on the table and stood up. "Janice," I said with genuine calm, "thank you for welcoming me into your family these past 4 years. I've always appreciated your effort to make me feel welcome," I said, "and the barbecue is beautiful." I gave Janice a polite smile. "I'm sorry, but I won't be staying for cake." I walked slowly around the table, stopping behind Liam's chair. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. "I've already moved out the essentials," I said quietly, just for him to hear. "My sister will pick up the rest next week." He didn't respond. "The prenup states that infidelity forfeits asset protection." I added, "My attorney will be in touch." Then I turned away. I walked through the crowd of stunned relatives, some still holding forks midair, others staring at their drinks as if they might contain answers, and headed for the front of the house. Right on cue, my pre-scheduled rideshare was waiting at the curb. Behind me, I heard Janice's voice rise sharply. "How could you do this at my birthday party?" But she wasn't speaking to me. That was 11 months ago. Sometimes I still wake up reaching for Liam in the dark, before remembering. The past clings, even when it shouldn't. The divorce was finalized faster than expected. Apparently, when you're facing potential felony charges for financial fraud, cooperation becomes an attractive option. He was agreeable, almost meek. The company filed charges. He pled guilty to a lesser count in exchange for testimony against a wider internal conspiracy. Julia cooperated with investigators, too, said she hadn't known about the embezzlement. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she did. Either way, she was fired. Last I heard, she moved back to her hometown in Ohio. Janice sent me a handwritten letter 3 months after the barbecue, 10 pages, beautiful cursive on ivory stationery. Part apology, part justification, part hesitant peace offering. Since then, we've had coffee twice. The conversations are formal, layered with diplomacy and restraint. She keeps hinting at staying in touch. I haven't decided yet. Surprisingly, it was Liam's sister who reached out first, just days after the barbecue. "I always knew something wasn't right," she said over wine. "He was Dad's favorite. Could do no wrong. It made him arrogant. We've become something like friends. Healing shows up in strange places. Most of the money was recovered, enough for me to buy a small house in another neighborhood. Nothing flashy, just mine. Clean, quiet, no memories clinging to the walls. I painted every room myself. Bright, bold colors, shades he would have hated. People sometimes ask if I regret the spectacle, if I could have handled it in a more discreet way. They think my preparation was vindictive, that my precision made it cruel. What they don't understand is this: secrecy was his weapon. Privacy kept his lies alive, gave them cover, let them flourish. I chose truth, I chose exposure, not for vengeance, but for light. Some nights, I sit on my porch swing, watching the sky soften, and replay that afternoon in Janice's backyard. Not to revel in his humiliation, but to remember the exact moment I took back my dignity. There's a difference. In that moment, watching his pristine image fall apart, I wasn't just revealing his betrayal. I was refusing to become its silent witness. Last week, Janice called. Liam's sentencing is approaching. She asked if I'd consider writing a character letter for the judge. I declined. Politely. Some debts can't be settled with second-hand sympathy. Yesterday, I received a job offer in Seattle. A major promotion, a new beginning. I accepted without hesitation. The forests and rain always called to me, even though Liam preferred deserts and dry heat. Small choices like these, decisions made purely for myself, still feel revolutionary. Do I still love him? That's the question people ask most often, usually at dinner parties when they lean in close, eyes glittering with morbid interest. The truth? It's complicated. I loved the man I thought he was. I mourn the future we'll never get to live. But I don't regret setting fire to the ornate, polished illusion our marriage had become. There was a time when I would have given anything to fix what was broken. But now I understand that some things aren't meant to be repaired. They're meant to be released. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for yourself and for everyone else, is to speak the truth, no matter how brutal. Secrets rot. But truth, no matter how sharp, eventually purifies. And forgiveness? That's a journey I'm still walking. Not for his sake, never for his sake, but for mine. I'm learning that forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the betrayal never happened. It means choosing not to let it define what comes next. The whole so-called barbecue revenge wasn't about destroying Liam. It was about making sure I wasn't destroyed. Refusing to curl into the role of betrayed wife. Refusing to bear shame that was never mine to carry. It was reclaiming the narrative, not just for the world to see, but for myself. In the end, the most powerful act of revenge wasn't the exposure, or the legal fallout, or even the financial outcome. It was the moment I drove away from that house, lungs full of air, body weightless for the first time in months, finally entirely mine again. Sometimes people ask, would I do it differently now? I always give the same answer. The only thing I regret is not bringing extra guacamole. It was my signature dish, after all, and I never got to taste it one last time at Janice's table. That thought makes me laugh sometimes. How something so absurdly small can feel like the clearest detail amid catastrophe. But that's what healing looks like, finding laughter in the rubble. Last week I packed away our wedding album, not with anger, not with grief. Just a calm, cool detachment, like shelving an old college textbook, once vital, now just done. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine wasn't revenge at all. It was truth, served precisely the way it needed to be. Ice clear and undeniable. My therapist says I'm doing incredibly well. I tell her it's because I didn't leave pieces of myself behind when I left. I took it all with me. My self-worth, my future, my sense of clarity. This morning I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Liam for 3 full days. 3 whole days of peace. It felt like an entire season passed in silence. A kind of serenity I didn't know I was missing until it arrived. Progress isn't linear, but sometimes it announces itself in silence. The hills outside my new place turn indigo at dusk. No one here knows my story, unless I want them to. Dear friend, life rarely shatters in one loud crash. It splinters quietly, piece by piece. And sometimes you don't realize how much you've lost yourself until you start picking those pieces back up. In the face of betrayal, we often ask, why me? But the Stoics taught us to ask, what now? Because suffering isn't what breaks us, it's what reveals us. You are not what others did to you, you are who you choose to become after. So choose peace, choose clarity, choose to walk away not bitter, but free. And if you're still in the storm, know this, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through the quiet choices we make to reclaim ourselves. You are not broken, you are becoming. If this story touched you or made you feel seen, even for a moment, please take a second to like, share, or subscribe. It helps more than you know, and it lets us keep bringing you stories that matter.